It has been said that when an old person dies, a library is lost. Before the internet, Facebook, Twitter, before television or radio, our culture was transmitted for generation to generation by the elders. Culture is not inherited biologically, but learned socially. Culture does not exist in isolation. It is a product of society. Pat Answers Archive is, in my own small way, a way to hand down my library to those who will come after me. Samuel and Anastasia had emigrated from Russia in early 1917. They were part of the Ukrainian ethnicity known as Kulaks and had been forewarned to leave the country as soon as they could. They were lucky. They had been befriended by members of the nobility who had not only arranged for the necessary sponsors in the United States, but also to give them the necessary funds to make the journey. As it turns out, they had fled their homeland just in time. Over the ensuing years, they have worked hard. He was a roofer, and she did physical labor at a packing house in the Union stockyards. It was her job in a packing house that allowed not only them and their 3 daughters, but many of the neighbor families to survive the Great Depression, since the management of the packing house allowed Anastasia to bring home some of the meat scraps and the bones at no charge. Times were tough, but they were tougher. Pat's Answers will continue after these words.
There is a story that upon exiting the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin was approached by a group of citizens asking what sort of government the delegates had created. His answer was, "A republic, if you can keep it." The analysis of the founding is that it was first a revolt against the monarchy and then a counter-revolution against democracy. There's no question that the men who met in Philadelphia had direct financial interests in the outcome. They were also motivated by the usual stuff like patriotism, regional loyalty, and petty stupidity. More important is the fact that people who drive history have personal interests. The men who revolted against the king did so because they saw an advantage in it. Once they gained control of the country, they were not about to give it away or arrange things to their disadvantage. After all, the whole point of the revolution was to get a better deal. Political arrangements are not about ideals. They are about power. A Republic, If You Can Keep It, by Patrick C. Cantor Sr., is written from the point of view of the Founding Fathers.
Available now at patsanswers.com/blog. Click on the store tab. $16.99 plus $5 shipping and handling. Buy it today. Samuel and Anastasia were my maternal grandparents, and it was from them that, at a young age, I learned many of the skills that I still use to this very day. They had never forgotten the lesson that they had learned in their homeland, that true security came through the ownership of a plot of land upon which they could grow food, raise animals, and thereby feed their family. It was in late 1949 or early 1950 that they bought the small 5-acre truck farm in East Hazel Crest, Illinois, and moved from Chicago's Back of the Yards neighborhood. Sam planted most of the acreage in tomatoes, as he had arranged to sell the entire crop to Campbell's for soup. He also had a small flock of chickens, a few ducks, and one very nasty, aggressive goose. The chickens were kept mostly to provide eggs, and when they no longer regularly laid eggs, their destiny was the stew pot. One of the early lessons Samuel taught me was the proper technique to slaughter, pluck, and otherwise process chickens for food. It was a hard lesson for an innocent 5-year-old, but a lesson so vivid that I never lost the respect in knowing that another living creature gave its life so that I might live. Samuel had constructed an area for processing chickens in the yard between the chicken coop and the back door of the farmhouse. It was a rough table, constructed from 2x4s and a 4x8 sheet of plywood. On one end was nailed a large tractor funnel with the spout cut so that a chicken could be inserted head first into it. Under the funnel was a bucket. Next to the table was an old portable wood stove with a large wash tub of water on top of it. And next to that, another wash tub that would be filled with ice water when the chickens were being processed. A few minutes before Samuel started processing the chickens, he would fill the one tub with ice water and light a fire in the wood stove to bring that wash tub of water to a simmer. The technique that Samuel used to slaughter chickens was very efficient. A chicken would be inserted head first into the funnel. The head would extend through the spout. The wings would be pinned against the side of the bird, and the legs would be in the air. Samuel would take a large butcher knife in his right hand, grasp the chicken's beak in his left, pulling gently to extend the neck. Placing the blade of the knife against the back of the chicken's neck, he would slice across the spout of the funnel and simultaneously drop the chicken's head into the bucket. He would then wait a minute or two until the chicken bled out, with the blood also dropping into the bucket. Once the chicken had bled out and stopped moving, Samuel would grasp the feet, pull the chicken from the funnel, and quickly dunk it in the simmering water to loosen the feathers. After almost a minute, the feathers were loose enough so that he could pluck them from the bird. Once the bird was plucked, he would lay the carcass on the table, make a cut around the vent of the bird, being careful not to cut the intestines, reach into the cavity of the bird and remove the offal, and drop it into the bucket. He would then drop the clean bird into the tub of ice water to quickly chill the meat and keep it from spoiling. Today, it would be unthinkable to hand a 5-year-old a sharpened butcher knife and expect him to slaughter a chicken. Today, most likely, it would be considered child abuse. Back then, it was considered learning about life.
That's all, folks.